Look where we are, back in the driverless car for a big 49ers update. Deebo Samuel drawing some trade interest, according to a report this afternoon. We don't have any specific teams to name, but I can think of the Patriots. I can think of the Chiefs. Don't the Steelers always need a receiver? Their fans, their media were obsessed with Brandon Ayuk last year before the 49ers signed Ayuk to the extension worth $30 million annually. But we know that Deebo Samuel has requested a trade. We know that the 49ers are very interested in indulging that request. And now we are in the driverless car getting ready to turn onto Guerrero Street. Look, we've got 22 minutes to talk about this. To me, it's not surprising that there's interest in a Deebo Samuel trade. There have been pieces of speculation that have come out from reputable reporters trying to say that it's very unlikely that the 49ers do go through with a trade of Deebo Samuel due to the salary cap. And to that I say, that is not a founded concern about the salary cap. That is something that is not tethered in the financial realities of the situation. So we'll go through all of that as we talk over the course of the next 22 minutes, as we try to make this right turn. I know you guys always like to see the first big turn. There's the first big turn. It's been a little while since I've been in San Francisco in one of these driverless cars, but they're fun to do shows in, especially when we have something like this to talk about. So the big question right now is Deebo Samuel tradable? And I've already answered that question several times, but a lot of people don't seem to understand how the salary cap works, so I'm happy to go over it again. Deebo Samuel has been paid out a lot of money that hasn't yet hit the salary cap because the 49ers have deferred the charges to future years. You can do that in the NFL. The 49ers have successfully surfed the wave of the salary cap with several big contracts, including Deebo Samuel's. The restructure that they executed before this past 2024 season was the last in the line of multiple restructures that they've executed to keep Deebo Samuel more affordable on the salary cap in the near term. However, if they do move off of Deebo Samuel before the end of his contract, or just in general, whenever they move off of Deebo Samuel, the 49ers will have to absorb all of the money that they've pushed out into the future against the salary cap in accelerated fashion. It's going to hit sooner rather than later. In the case of Samuel, it would be $31.5 million hitting the salary cap immediately. His current cap hit is like 15 to 16 million. So you'd basically double the cap damage in 2025 because that money would accelerate the hit sooner. Even if you stiff arm that money into the future, the only way you could do that if you get rid of Deebo Samuel through a post-June 1st designation, you're still going to have to pay that money at some point. It's still going to hit the cap in part of it in 2025, but the rest of it in 2026. That's what a post-June 1st designation does. It pushes money against the cap into the future. So there are a lot of people going out and saying, oh, well, they could not possibly trade him because they can't absorb a $31 million cap hit this season. They'd rather just cut him, not get draft compensation, and designate this as a post-June cut. Post-June 1 cut, I guess I should say. It doesn't take effect until June 2nd. And that it's just a preposterous line of thinking because it is completely ignorant of the 49ers cap situation. They've got $46 million in space, according to my calculations. And we don't know the exact cap yet, but we know the $4 million range from 277.5 to 281.5. So they've got this big buffer, like bigger than most teams in the NFL. They carried over 50 million in space because this is how they operate. And I mean, that is a key part of this. Unused space carries over from season to season, so they can absorb whatever they need to regarding Deebo Samuel this year. So if there are teams that are genuinely interested in Deebo Samuel, if there's somebody willing to send over a 5th round pick, hell, maybe even a conditional 3rd round pick, we can talk about the price over the course of this show, but if there's somebody willing to send something of real value to the 49ers, the salary cap sure as hell is not going to stop them from accepting that offer. You can be sure of that. I mean, it's one of the more idiotic things, one of the more idiotic narratives that I've heard, and there have been a lot of bad ones surrounding the 49ers lately. Draft picks are worth their weight in gold. I don't have to go any further than talking about Brock Purdy being pick number 262. You want as many throws up against the dartboard as possible. So you're not going to forego draft compensation just so you can save $15 million of salary cap space that you're going to get back later anyway, because unused cap space carries over from season to season. And the only thing that's happening right now is you're changing when the cap actually takes the damage from some of these transactions. That's what the post-June 1st designation is. It's just a timing thing for the salary cap. People act like cap space is in a vacuum on a year-to-year basis. People act like the 2025 salary cap situation is the end-all, be-all. And if Deebo Samuel costs $15 million more on the books for 2025 because the 49ers have traded him and absorbed the dead money, they're committing some kind of horrible financial decision. And that's just not the case. That's just not how any of this works. The $15 million that the 49ers would actually be spending extra for Deebo Samuel on the cap this year, it's not even money spent at all. It's just a cap charge. It's a cap charge that's going to hit regardless with dead money either this year or the year after. In fact, they would save money by moving on from Deebo Samuel this season because they wouldn't owe him the $15.4 million option bonus. And that, is a key trigger in all of this. March 22nd is when Deebo Samuel's owed a $15.4 million option bonus. And the 49ers, I think, would ideally like to consummate business here before then. Because if you do it before then obviously the option bonus passes off onto another team. In the simplest form, this Deebo Samuel saga is a tale that we've seen many times before in the NFL. It's a notable player not wanting to play on the lame duck year of his contract. Nothing special about this. Deebo Samuel's contract runs through the 2025 season. The 49ers have very obviously opted not to extend Deebo Samuel, at least at the rate that he'd want to be extended ahead of this 2025 season. In a sport that is rife with injuries, especially given a player that's as physical as Deebo Samuel, it makes total sense for him to not want to play on an expiring contract. Well, if the 49ers don't see Deebo Samuel as an integral part of their plans, especially after the down 2024 season, they're not going to give him that contract. So he's going to want to go somewhere that gives him the contract that offers security beyond the 2025 season. Hence the trade request, hence the 49ers' willingness to oblige the trade request, because if he's not part of their long-term plans, they'd want to recoup some draft capital for him. If they can't recoup draft capital for Deebo Samuel, the 49ers might consider keeping him aboard, but that doesn't seem like it's going to be the most likely scenario that plays out. Because if he does stay aboard through 2025 and then he signs elsewhere, then the 49ers can recoup a comp pick. That's typically how they've operated when guys have walked in the past. Take a look. Look at these old trolleys running down Market Street. Pretty cool. There's another one that we're chasing down, but we're not quite going to chase it down. He's way ahead of us. They've got trolleys from like different cities in the U.S., all decorated with those cities' colors back from when they ran in those cities. Most cities don't have trolley systems anymore, but they have kind of a running museum here on Market Street in San Francisco. We're about to make the big left turn on Franklin Street, and we could start talking about Deebo Samuel. And here's the turn. Here comes the turn. Always like to see the wheel. There we go. Well executed, right by the Italian homemade company. Good pasta right there. And on to Franklin Street, where we can flip the camera back around. So potential teams for Deebo Samuel. Who might be interested? How much might he cost? Well, you always have to look at what the inheriting team would have to pay contractually, because that starts their negotiations. So obviously Samuel's going to want a new contract. That's goes back to the root of why this entire saga started. He's entering a lame duck year without a new contract. So he's going to want a new deal. And the existing one, a new team would inherit $15.4 million in either option bonus or base salary money. I think it reverts to base salary if the bonus is not picked up on March 22nd, based on what I read from Jason Hurley, who does a great job with a lot of this salary cap stuff. But in general, it's 15 that will turn into effective salary this year, plus a $1.3 million veteran minimum base salary, and then I think another $100,000 in workout bonus money. You add all that together, and it's about 16.5 to 17 million for 1 year of Deebo Samuel. We do not expect him to play for that amount next year, especially if he's on a new team. But it is the launching off point for any trade and sign deal, right? D Ford was traded from the Chiefs to the 49ers in 2019, and then the 49ers gave him a new contract. So this probably would work in a similar fashion for Deebo Samuel. We can say hello to San Francisco City Hall and our friend Daniel Lurie, the mayor of San Francisco. He is maybe in the office right now as we pass San Francisco City Hall and move further down Franklin Street. All right, so 16 to 17 million. There are teams that might consider that a bargain for Deebo Samuel. It really does depend. It's hard to gauge the market, especially before talking to people at the NFL Combine for this one, because he is such a unique player. I mean, Deebo has set NFL records for the yak and the yards after contact after the catch. Like when you average that out after every single catch, Deebo Samuel has done special stuff that we haven't really seen a bulldozer of his type at the wide receiver position before. So he's a unique player, but there are also concerns about how well a unique player in that style is going to age. I know the 49ers have definitely had some of those concerns throughout the entirety of the time that they've had Deebo Samuel on the roster. You probably noticed that when they extended him in 2022, it was only a 3-year extension as opposed to some of these longer extensions. So, I mean, it all goes hand in hand with the physicality that Deebo Samuel brings to the field. So this is an unusual case. He's not your typical X wide receiver. He's not your straight up separator. Again, he is more of a bulldozer. He is a tank out there. And I think that because of that, there are positive attributes, obviously, in the list of talents that I'm bringing up for Deebo Samuel. I think that there might be real interest that exceeds what some people assume the market's going to be for a receiver who managed only, 700 to 800 receiving yards this past season. So that's where things start with Deebo Samuel. We could look at how offenses around the league are being run. The Kansas City Chiefs are throwing a lot of short passes. I mean, I did an entire video about this just a couple weeks ago. Patrick Mahomes is throwing behind the line of scrimmage more than any other quarterback in football. The Kansas City Chiefs might be interested in Deebo Samuel for that reason. I don't think that everybody could use a separator, obviously. Everybody can try to stretch the field more, work with the intermediate timing game. The 49ers can use more separators. They were last in the league in average separation with Deebo Samuel on the roster. They didn't throw a lot of screen passes. They probably should have thrown short more this past season to take advantage of, or at least to salvage what the weapons that they did have offensively with all those injuries. But Kansas City actually did run a robust short game in 2024. And if they continue running such a robust short game, they can definitely use a player like Deebo Samuel on their team. Somebody like the Pittsburgh Steelers, they can always use a receiver. They seem to always be deficient at that position. They can definitely use, aggressive lane change here from Mr. Waymo. I haven't been in one of these in a while, and today it feels like the AI on these cars has taken another step up. So somebody like the Steelers, The Ravens, they love physical runners. And Deebo Samuel, of course, he can be in the backfield and he could split out. He could catch some of those short passes. He can also, I mean, he's been deployed on longer routes. We're not saying that the timing and separation game is his specialty, but part of the beauty of Deebo Samuel when he's been healthy for the 49ers over the course of the past several years has been the fact that he's an interchangeable weapon. He can line up in the backfield. He can line up out wide. You're not really sure what personnel package the 49ers are in when Deebo Samuel is out on the field because he can do multiple different things. So that lends itself to a potentially dynamic trade market, at least an interesting trade market. And that's why we're seeing this report right now. That's why we're seeing that several teams are, in fact, interested in Deebo Samuel because there's a manageable price for 2025. He's obviously interested in that extension, but that manageable price sets up a manageable extension because that's the launching off point. And then the question is, well, how can the 49ers absorb that? And, well, that's why they have $46 million in salary cap space. So they can absorb the dead money hit now instead of having to settle for no draft compensation and post June 1st cap relief. I don't think it's worth it for the 49ers to have to settle for post June 1st cap relief. Now, if there's not a market for Deebo Samuel, of course you post June 1st designate him if you're going to get rid of him, if the decision is to cut him. Of course you'd rather take that cap hit a little bit later when there is more cap room with the salary cap rising. But in a world where draft capital is the lifeblood of sustained success, you're going to want draft capital at any time. Like that's the decision you're always going to make. So the question is, if the 49ers, right now we're wondering if the 49ers are going to get that draft capital in return that they'd be looking for to move Deebo Samuel. We continue our roll down Franklin Street. If you have any questions, toss them my way. We're on the green wave right now, but I don't know if we're going to make the next light. From what I understand about the option bonus, and this is something that I need to check in a little bit deeper on, I think the 49ers can actually decline that March 22nd bonus and have it revert to base salary, which of course would remain non-guaranteed. I think it's in option bonus form right now so that the 49ers can get the prorated cap relief if Deebo Samuel's on the team. But of course, we're making that sharp turn. There we go. I almost missed it. I love that first right turn that we make after like 10 minutes. I like giving you guys that turn. I mean, this is still so cool, especially after I've been out of town for a while, to see a car with no driver in the seat as we're just rolling down the road. It's a nice way to give you guys a scenic tour of San Francisco. Unfortunately, some of the marine layer is coming in. It was very sunny a little bit earlier today. But that $15.4 million option bonus contractually, based on what Jason Hurley said, if the 49ers do not pick it up on March 22nd or by March 22nd, it would turn into base salary money, which gives them a little bit more time and, a longer leash as far as timing goes to execute this trade. So many times we've seen trades like this happen around the draft because that is a semblance of deadline pressure. And that you want the pick before the draft happens so you can make your team better right now. So if the money does revert to base salary, if the 49ers don't pick up the option, as I would expect them to do by that March 22nd date, if Deebo Samuel is still on the roster at that point, then the 49ers would be able to hold out until the draft and hold out until deadline pressure might make something happen. Let's watch this drive up the steep hill. This is Union coming up from Polk Gulch. I'm guessing we're going to be turning left on Hyde. We always turn left on Hyde. That's the fun way to go. I used to live on Larkin Street, right down that way. Good times. Let's see what the deal is here. To turn left down Hyde, we're going to go down to cable car tracks. And then we'll finally hit the Dolphin Club. I haven't been in the bay in a while. I've been in 80-degree plus water in Tahiti and French Polynesia, so I don't know if I'm ready for this cold water, but you're gonna have to tough it out at some point. Maybe get some Turkish coffee ice cream from Swenson's at some point as well. We normally don't take Union up, which is really neat. Normally we take Vallejo up, so coming at this from a different angle. Normally I show you the ice cream shop from the Hyde Street side, not from the Union Street side. But times change. The Waymo has gotten updated directions, and apparently this was faster this time. All right, we're not missing this turn. This is going to be a fun left turn. It's an unprotected left turn, too. I don't think that we can risk it. There are people crossing the street. I think that we've got to wait a little bit. Man, a lot of cars, and they are taking their sweet time. They don't want to let Casper make this turn. Casper's going to be aggressive. He's going for it. Casper only requires a small hole, and then he could bust out that big run. We have now made it to Hyde, and hopefully we see a cable car right around the town that we hit, Lombard Street. Always my favorite part of the drive. Yeah, we are not somebody said these are the rough streets of Tahiti. We are now on the rough streets of Russian Hill, where a lot of tourists are sure to start taking pictures of the car right now. They're looking very quizzically at the car. That's funny. All right, here we go. Lombard Street. Coit Tower. A look down the hill to Alcatraz, which you will see right now. So long story short, as we head down the hill, trade interest in Deebo Samuel coming from several teams. I can surmise that the Chiefs might be one of those teams. The Ravens might be one of those teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers might be teams. The 49ers can trade Deebo Samuel and be financially okay with it. Anybody telling you otherwise doesn't really understand the salary cap. It's the difference between a post-June 1st cut and a trade where the dead money accelerates right now. Well, there isn't that big of a difference if you realize that unused cap space carries over from season to season. It's not just about the 2025 cap bucket. It's about 2026, 2027, so on and so forth. If anything, trading Deebo Samuel and saving the option salary money that's due to him this year, the $15.4 million plus the million in base salary that's currently on the books, gives Jed York a little bit more cash to pay Brock Purdy. There are savings. Like, even if you absorb a $31.5 million dead money hit for moving Deebo Samuel, you're still saving money because you're avoiding the money that you owe him this year. Dead money is money that you already paid him. You're not getting away with dead money. That's going to hit the cap at some point. It's the money that you haven't paid Deebo Samuel yet, but is still on the books, scheduled to be paid. That's the money that you have to try to avoid. Want those cap savings for Brock Purdy if Deebo Samuel is an financially inefficient member of the roster. And I think that the 49ers have come to the conclusion that at his current price tag, Deebo Samuel, like Eric Armstead last season, is financially inefficient. Now they're going to try to consummate that trade, and there is interest coming in from around the NFL. Other little piece of news, and it is not really news yet. This is just a rumor. I've heard the same thing. Matt Barrows talked about this with Tim Tommy, the NFC Championship game. Kyle's had some downtime. He's had some time to rebuild the coaching staff. He did all that in January. At this point of the past several seasons, Kyle Shanahan was still really busy interviewing coaches, trying to figure out all the small things that the 49ers were going to do, under the surface on the coaching staff, the assistants to the assistants. This year, all of that is done, so he might have a chance to go to the combine nice and rested. It's crazy how the schedule of the NFL means that in the Super Bowl, they have to turn around, and 2 weeks later, you have to head to the NFL Combine. That was a tough turnaround for the 49ers, but obviously things are a little bit different this year. So we might expect to see Kyle Shanahan at this year's NFL Combine, which is happening next week in Indianapolis. We also will expect to see several agents there. John Lynch will be at the Combine. By the way, we've hit the Dolphin Club, so we're making this final turn. Lynch is going to be at the Combine. Look, that guy's taking pictures of us. That was funny. The Torrey Dandy, who's Deebo Samuel's agent's going to be there. Executives of other teams are going to be there, and the 49ers will try to make progress on this potential Deebo Samuel trade. They have interest. They should have interest in Deebo Samuel. It only makes sense. And yes, if they get a good offer, they will be able to afford the salary cap ramifications of it. I mean, that ties into the exploding salary cap. It's going to be another increase around 10% this year. Bottom line is the 49ers have enough money to do what they need to do this offseason, and that is sign Brock Purdy, potentially trade Deebo Samuel, and obviously rack up some new free agents. So don't worry about the 49ers' financial situation. Focus on the fact that there is trade interest in Deebo Samuel, and that could benefit the 49ers because they can recoup some value for their departing star, their likely departing star. All right, I got to get out. Talk to you guys soon.